Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's Darkest Timeline Podcast, and it's episode 101. That's right, past the 100 mark, but we're still going. So, by now, I imagine you know the drill. Games, movies, TV, and something from the week. If you're watching us on YouTube, do subscribe. I've seen lots of lovely YouTube subscribers. And it's amazing, but, could always be more YouTube subscribers. Podcast listeners, you can also subscribe, whether it's iTunes, SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts. You can subscribe and support us in any way. So here we go. This is CookieCast, the Darkest Timeline Podcast. Right, here we go. 101. Not room 101. Episode 101. And no, I'm not going to spend every episode telling you what episode it is. Obviously, episode 100 was a big thing. I was going to get our guest to come on this week, and then I was like, I kind of feel like the moment's gone. So, no guest. Is the short one there, peeps. No guest. I have obviously put the microphone in the wrong place. Just seem to be having audio issues at the moment, which is not amazing when this is an audio podcast. But yes, I believe small hands have been hard at work causing chaos with the mixer. Anyway, let's get cracking. Yeah, it's a mixed bag of tricks this week, kids. So, obviously the way this podcast works is like it's broken down in sections, something from the week, and then there's like films, TV, and games. Unfortunately, for anybody that doesn't tune in for the games section of the podcast, the stuff from the week is games heavy. Just because, for once, in a blue moon, I actually got quite interested in buying a new game. Oh yes, drinking a lovely non-alcoholic pale ale, which is really dark. Makes no sense. Check out the Pursuit of Hoppiness on that one. So, the new Resident Evil came out on Friday. I've had an up and down relationship with Resident Evil, and had a conversation with Sam of gaming podcast fame and so on, about how I'd played all of the Resident Evils up to 5, and he'd been talking to me about Resident Evil 6. I was like, that doesn't ring a bell. When I did a clear out of my retro games, found a copy of Resident Evil 6, was like, guess I played that then and have no recollection of it. Shows how much of an impact it made. When Resident Evil 7 came along, I was like, I feel like I'm out of the Resident Evil genre. And then I started vaguely looking at it. I was like, it's super creepy. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, House of a Thousand Corpses sort of genre. And I was like, that is absolutely not for me. So I kind of let that game pass me by completely it just wasn't going to be the game for me. There are too many elements there. Me and horror, I don't really do horror to a degree. I have seen many a horror movie in the past, but there are certain types of horror that I am okay with and certain types of horror I am not. Because I think it's cheap. One of the biggest things is jump scares. I think it's a cheap version of horror, and the reason for that is because they get me every time, and that's why I don't like it. And I know for some people that's a big draw. Some people love that, but for me, it's the opposite. I hate it because it gets me every time, sort of thing. So that was that. Obviously, time passes. Next thing, we've got Resident Evil 8, The Village, which I watched a video the other day. I watched like a review of it. I never even realised that they've managed to get the Roman numerals for 8 into the word village. It's like, meh. Part of me was a bit like, it's a bit cheap, and part of me was like, it's kind of clever. So 8 comes along, gets a review. It's like 8 out of 10. Like, okay, 8 out of 10. It's good to go. Then I start hearing words like, "Oh, it's nothing. It doesn't play like 7. Plays more like 4." And I'm like, "Ooh, I liked Resident Evil 4." To the point that I bought it recently. So all of these things coming out, that it plays a different way. They wanted to move away from the quote unquote 7 was too scary and all this. I'm like, oh, okay. Started watching a few videos, started watching a few sort of reviews, and I was like, actually, do you know something? Not only I'm quite interested in this, and to the point that I might consider actually getting this. I might consider buying it. So off I trot to my usual locale for buying computer games, namely Amazon and a variety of other websites. And that's where things went horribly, horribly wrong. So, for Resident Evil 8, which was released that day, Amazon wanted 60 English pounds. And I was like, you what? So when the next part of this came in, I was like, what's happening? Because not only did they want £60 for it, it was out of stock. That means that it had sold out. Now, so I've seen some stuff saying that it's one of the highest played Resident Evil games at launch. I think there was a thing saying there was 100,000 people playing it at once on Steam, which beat Resident Evil 7 by 25,000 people. I get it. But then I started putting 2 and 2 together, and it's like, okay, so this is the first proper game that we've had released since, well, for me, since Outriders. Now, I was trying to work this out the other day, and I think I narrowed it down to Outriders came out sometime in March. We are now 2 weeks into May. So, this is the worst time for games, because there aren't any. And there are these, new consoles out and about, and no games. So, it's like, alright, here we go. So what you're talking about is, because there's this drought, you can basically charge whatever you want for a new game, and not only that, people will pay it. This is what the games market has wanted for an entire generation of games. Microsoft and Sony attempted to do this last time round. So for the release of the PS4, with the release of the Xbox One, they attempted to convince people to pay £60 for games. And people were like, we absolutely will not do that. Give it 5 years or so. So I was just like, you're having an absolute giraffe. As it is, hunting around, and you would never pay £60 for a game. That is just insanity. I don't care what game it is, and I don't care how good it is. You just can't. That's craziness. So you go to all the various different websites and find it cheaper. In the process of doing this, again, Sam, and then followed by Leanne jumped on this one. I've been convinced to buy Resident Evil 7, so I'm waiting for a copy of that to turn up, and then I'll attempt to play 7, and then we'll see about Resident Evil 8. And this is it. There's a continuation to this, because I saw an article a few days ago talking about how Sony have said that they're looking to make a new version of the PS5. And it's statements like that, it's things like that I'm just like, what is going on here? The games market is literally, the bottom has fallen out of the market. Yet I think Sony have been huffing paint or something, because they just don't seem to have a clue at the moment. Because then today I saw a thing that was like, oh yeah, we expect the stock shortages on PS5s to last well into 2022. Okay, is that the current one or the new one that you've announced? And it's just like, Sony are the worst for it at the moment. They're just like, we don't really care what's going on with the actual games market. We're just gonna keep chugging along, not having a frigging clue about what's going on. It's completely baffling. Bear in mind that they also announced that the PS5 is the fastest selling or highest selling or whatever number they want to use, yet nobody's got one. I know one person that owns a PlayStation 5. I know one person that owns an Xbox, whatever the hell they're called. That's it. That's it. So who the hell has all of these PlayStations? I do not know. It feels very much like the games market has just collapsed in on itself. And like I said at the start, if you're not here for the games, I apologise. Games is a bit of a thing for me. Sometimes a bigger thing, sometimes less of a thing. There are points in the last few weeks where I've gone nearly a week without playing anything, which to some people doesn't sound like a lot, and to others. Anywho, let's talk about puppies instead. Puppy ownership is basically Googling things. And if your search doesn't start with how to stop puppy doing X, then you might have gone wrong somewhere. Because that's all I do. The other thing I Google is, should puppy be doing this? And guess what? The answer is always No, absolutely not. That's terrible. I googled something this evening. It's like, why is he always doing this? Googled it. Google's like, don't ever let a puppy do that. It's one of the worst things that they can do. I'm reading it and I'm like, stop it! Stop doing that! And then you read more and it's like, oh, this is a really, really bad sign. Okay, that's cool. That's super fun. So one of the things that I had to Google in the last week is, do puppies have toilet training regressions? Because, X number of weeks down the line from being supposedly toilet trained, puppies like, I know that I do normally go outside to go for a wee, but how about I just do it here instead? It's like, what? No, you go outside. Oh, right, yeah, I forgot about that. Next day, it's like, rather than going outside, how about I do a wee here on this blanket? It's like, no. Next day. I mean, if I do it in the garage, that's kind of like outside, isn't it? No. So yeah, you Google stuff like that. You Google it and you're like, oh, okay, that is a thing. Such complex beings. I keep coming back to it. I think they're more complex than babies. And I think they're harder work than babies. And I am just left in this world of, why would anybody get a puppy? Having got one and living through it, I'm like, why would anyone do this? It makes no sense. All puppies should be like pre-trained to a certain degree, to a certain level. It's bonkers. Like I talked to like various people, my sister and various people, other people about, people I know who have got dogs. And they just talk like, oh, you've only got 2 years of this. They used the word only, and the other words were 2 years in the same sentence, like it's nothing. And like, oh, it's alright, once they get past this point, they calm down. Okay. It's comforting to know that that point will come, but it's a really long way off. Now again, I keep doing these podcasts and I keep doing these pup dates. And I am very much aware that it sounds to the untrained ear that I am not enjoying puppy ownership. And here's the thing. For all of the issues, the fact that how many weeks are we at now? 7 weeks, something like that. The puppy still cannot sit on command. The puppy can sit at any given moment. Whenever it wants to, it's like, I'll just sit down. Yeah? What's happening? Shall I sit down? That's his like go-to move, sitting down. Yet if you say to him, sit, he's like, what's that then? It makes for amazing interactions. It's like, okay. Yet, pretty sure I've managed to train him paw, the command paw, in like 3 goes. Like, I said it to him at one point, partially joking. It's like, paw. And he's like, there you go, there's my paw. I'm like, what is happening right now? Tried it another opportunity, tried it again. I was like, paw. He's like, there you go, there's my paw. I'm like, I do not understand this. Ironically, obviously he's sitting down when he does it. Tried it in the garden for a laugh this evening. I was like, paw. He's like, there you go, mate. That's a paw. Like, cool. Sit. He's like, what's that then? It bonkers. But, like I say, to the untrained ear, it sounds very much like I'm not enjoying puppy ownership. And there have been a variety of taxing moments. But, like I say, he, gives you his paw, and you're like, oh my god, this is amazing. He totally gets me. We had a bro trip last Wednesday. Me and him. Right, he was riding shotgun. I drove him around the block a few times in the car. And then I was like, I reckon you can handle it. So we took a drive out to somewhere that I used to take my eldest daughter. We used to go on a Friday evening in the summer. We used to go and get ice cream, go for a walk. So I thought it'd be kind of nice to take him there. Sort of special place, special memories. And I was like, let's do that. And we did. And he absolutely loved it. And I was like, oh. So, he was in the car, he was in the front seat, he was clipped in, trying out his new car seat clip and all that fun. And, we're driving along, I'm talking to him, he's looking at me like, yeah, I get you, big guy. And I'm like, I think you get me. And he's like, I do. That kind of situation. It was like some kind of buddy cop movie. It was like K9. That's the sweet spot. And then you've got times where you stood at a road for 10 minutes going, sit. Here, look, I've got a treat. Do you want to sit now? No. So yeah. A side note to puppy ownership. If you ever sort of wondered or thought or noticed or observed that people are generally, as a rule, miserable, what you want to do is get yourself a puppy, get out in that big wide world and realise just how truly miserable people are. And I get it, dogs, a lot of people are afraid of dogs. A lot of people look at a dog or a puppy or somebody or that situation and get anxious. But at the same time, it's like, oh, look, there's a puppy. Surely that instantly cheers you up. But yeah, I have never seen such level of misery in people's faces than since I got a puppy. So that's super comforting. Right. I reckon last year I probably spent quite a lot of time talking about making cold coffee, cold brew. It was my last year's lockdown type deal. So recently I've had this coming together of various different things. Number one, I got way too into Starbucks caramel macchiato, both hot and cold, which didn't help. Because if it's a cold day, you can get a hot one, and if it's a hot day, you can get a cold one. Bad news. Got super into them, which, obviously big fan of. My bank account, not so much. Then I started thinking, not entirely sure these are good for the waistline. So all of these things came together, and I was like, I need to start doing something about my money, because I can't go out, buy 2 coffees, come home 8-9 quid lighter and think that that's acceptable, think that's okay. So I was like, need to stop it from that aspect. Also, like I said, I don't know, calories wise, probably a lot of sugar. But then I saw an opportunity. For this summer's homemade drink to be a homemade iced caramel macchiato. Now, firstly, we need to ignore the statement about the sugar. Now that we've done that, now we can move on. So, I looked it up on the internet, and the internet's like, yeah, it's super easy. I was like, cool. To the point that if you go to the Starbucks website, I'm pretty sure they will give you a step-by-step instruction for the majority of the drinks they make. Which is what I did. So they were like, you need ice, you need milk, you need vanilla. Not a big fan of vanilla. But I was like, hey, I'll give it a go. You need vanilla, you need coffee, you need some drizzle, caramel drizzle for the top. I had all of those things. I have the ability to produce ice. I have milk. I bought some vanilla. And after a long search, managed to get some caramel drizzle. But not at first. I was like, I think that's where you're going to save on your calories, save on your sugar content. Let's go without the caramel drizzle. So I followed the step-by-step instructions for making the drink. And what I ended up with was not a homemade caramel macchiato. So, I've got caramel syrup. And it's not a good one. I don't think it's sugar free. I think it's like less sugar, like a reduced sugar one. And as anybody will know, reduced sugar doesn't taste very good. So I had to deal with that. So then I was like, okay, so, and this is the thing. This is how it goes. So I just end up like, oh, how can I tweak it? How can I make it better? How can I make the the thing I'm trying to make? So I had another go. Okay, so put the ice in, put the vanilla in, put the caramel in, put the milk in, put the coffee in. Tried that one, and I was like, I think this one might be worse. So this time, what I'd done differently is I'd put the caramel in with the vanilla rather than put it in last. So I got Leanne to try it, and she was like, I honestly think you need the drizzle. So then the search began for the drizzle. Hunted it down and finally found it. Got the drizzle. So then, here we go. Third time's the charm. See previous recipe. Hit it with the drizzle at the end. And what I ended up with was, it was not, even, adding the drizzle to it made it not as nice as it was previously. So at this point, it's like, the plot thickens. What the hell's going on here? So, again, Leanne's like, has all the caramel drizzle just sunk to the bottom of the glass? So I lifted the glass up above eye level. I was like, yeah, that's absolutely what's happened, isn't it? So, fourth time's a charm. See previous recipe, but this time, put caramel drizzle round the glass. So I ran it round the inside of the glass, then made the drink. And this time, almost exactly the same thing happened. But started to taste a little bit better. So, today, today's the day. Here's what we're going to do. Again, see previous recipe. So this time, I was like, do you know something? When I get an iced caramel macchiato, when I buy one, I never drink it straight away. Either I'll buy it and take it home. So it's, it's got X amount of time to sit before I drink it. Or, alternatively, I buy it, take it home, put it in the fridge. And it could be sometimes 12 hours later before I get to drinking it. So I've got an idea. A little bit of drizzle around the inside lid, not the whole glass, just the inside lid. Make the drink as see previous recipe. Little bit of caramel drizzle on top, and then just leave it sat. Now, by the way, if anybody wants to see a super cool kind of separation thing, make the recipe that I've just given you and look at how the coffee just sits on top of the milk. It's actually really cool. It's just it's cool. So I left it sat for probably a good 5 minutes or so. And then what I usually do is give it a stir. Because I'm like, why would you want the stuff separate? Gave it a stir. Then I gave it an extra stir to make sure that the caramel was actually mixed in. And I had a little taste. I was like, that's it. That's it right there. That is close. So I personally think what I need to do is attempt a change of caramel syrup. And then I think I'll have cracked it. And then we're in some seriously deep shit. Because then I can make caramel macchiatos at home. Iced caramel macchiatos at home. And then it's just, the wheels are going to come off the bus, ladies and gentlemen. This is what happens when you stop doing drugs. You get, super caught up in making cold coffee. But anyway, oh yeah, there was one thing, making that first one and it just being not nice. All I could think of was that episode of Friends where they try and make coffee at home, and it made me laugh. Saw an advert recently about, I think it was a Nike advert or something, but it was about sport and people doing sports and laughing when they failed because they know that something like they know they're going to get better, so failing's all part of it, sort of thing. And gave me a different insight into stuff. So my phone is just dead. Not fully, but as close to, he says, looking at his phone. So here's a list of things that my phone cannot do. Number 1, notify me that I have any WhatsApp messages. Number 2, it can't tell me that it can't tell me I've got any messages. So any platform that sends messages, it can't inform me that I have said messages. Every now and then, it can download emails. And every now and then, and by every now and then I mean 4 times a day, the sound stops working. It's been a real difficulty for me because I've been really enjoying paying £16 a month on my phone bill for quite some time. And, the part of me that does love a good conspiracy, I'm like, anytime your phone doesn't update past a certain point, it's steadily being broken to make you buy a new phone. Things aren't meant to last, they're not designed to last. I know that Apple are one of the forerunners of companies who are trying to stop this reusable, things need to be able to be fixed and replaced and being reusable. And Apple are one of the people wanting to stop it happening. Good old Apple. They're such an energy conscious, resource conscious company. So, this weekend the phone has been basically unusable. There's been things like points in time where I needed to get up and the sound's gone, which means that my alarm hasn't, it's gone off, but there's no sound. So it's, effectively just, nothing. He says remembering to put his alarms back on. So, in the end, after a long conversation with the phone people today, finally bit the bullet, ordered a new phone. It will arrive tomorrow. So then the fun begins. So I'm like, let's be proactive. Now here's the thing. Every single time that I have attempted to be proactive, always backfires. Example, I'm like, right, let's get the phone backed up. That actually went a lot smoother than I thought it was going to. However, I was like, well, hang on a minute. What about my photos? I seem to remember when I used to use a Mac, because I had an iPhone, I had a Mac. I was like, 2 and 2 together should work well. How do I back my photos up? And it's like, oh, you need a completely separate program to iTunes to do that. Super annoying, super difficult, super buggy, didn't work properly, all of this. This could very well be 10 years ago. Nearly. Maybe. So obviously, times have changed, things have moved on, and we're now faced with me trying to back up photos to a PC. Google it. Exactly the same thing. You need a different program to do this. Like, okay. Get the program open. Here we go. Do it. I can't do that, I'm afraid. Okay, why? I have no idea. Okay, cool. Rinse and repeat that for the next 2 to 3 hours, and you'll have what my day looked like today. What I'm left with is my between the PC and the phone, I've lost a couple of hundred, 200 or 300 photos in the process, which is super cool because this happens every time. And now, the best bit of all, the phone won't connect to the program that backs up the photos. No idea why, no idea how to change that, no idea what to do. The two will not connect to each other. So, I start looking into how to move all of the photos from one phone to the other. I don't even have the other phone. Found a way to do it, checked to see if it works. It would appear that it would work. Obviously I won't know until I'm faced with the situation, probably tomorrow. And I was like, do you know something? I've had an iPhone since the iPhone 3. And to me, what is it that every single person wants to do when they get a new phone? They want it to be exactly the same as their current phone, just better. They want a better model phone, they want a better camera, they want more space, faster this, do that, do the other. But ultimately, they also want it to be the same. I want my photos, I want my apps, I want my banking, I want my social media. I want my messages. I want absolutely everything the same, just on a new phone. I don't think that's ever. I've been through the process every single time. It's the same. Back up one phone, get new phone, make new phone, same as old phone. And Apple have basically looked at that process and gone, how can we make it as difficult, as close to, but not quite impossible? That seems to be their number one goal. Because I had this problem back donkey's years. I've had this problem with every single iPhone I've ever had. So as a company that's at the forefront of technology, I can only assume that this is actually the goal. The goal is to make it as difficult as possible. And the only thing about that is that I can't work out why. Because if there was a thing where they were saying, hey, we can make money out of you if you do this, which makes the process easier, I could understand it. Now, I'm going to caveat that by saying that is absolutely what they're doing. Because there is a thing that exists called iCloud. iCloud is basically give us all of your photographs. And we're not going to give you enough space to move all of your photographs. So you have to pay us for more space. And now, like I say, the thing about it is that they've gone, yep, let's make the process as hard as possible. So ultimately, you will just end up being boxed into a corner and have to give us money and all of your photographs. And let's not forget, it's iCloud that's always the one that's getting hacked and people's photos are getting stolen. So, like I say, I've potentially found a solution. And don't tell Apple, but it doesn't involve iCloud. Right, let's talk about some other stuff. I've actually watched a couple of movies. I sound shocked because I am. Because I kind of got out of the movie watching zone and then very quickly found myself back there. I've watched a TV episode and I've played a game. So, a while ago I had it recommended to me to watch a TV series. That TV series is the series Solar Opposites. Available through Disney Plus, but I think it's part of the Stars, is it? Section of Disney Plus. Because it's, adult, humor-y type thing. Made by, who is listed as the co-creator of Rick and Morty, who is absolutely the creator of Rick and Morty. Described to me as Rick and Morty without Dan Harmon. My response being, that can only be a good thing. I used to quite like Dan Harmon. But over time, I had various realisations. One of them being is that I don't think he's ever actually created anything. I think he's just ridden the coattails of people around him, namely Rick and Morty. So Justin Roiland, the co-creator of Rick and Morty, has done this series, this Solar Opposites. So I was like, do you know what? It's been recommended to me, so I'm going to sit down and I'm going to watch it. So I watched the first episode of Solar Opposites, and I got to the end of the episode. That's not true. I was watching the episode, and all I could think was, why? Because it's just Rick and Morty. That's all it is. It's just Rick and Morty. It's made by the same person that made Rick and Morty, and it's not identical, but it's just the same thing. And I was watching it, and I was just like, in a world where Rick and Morty exists, why do we need this? And I was talking to Lan about it. I was saying, I get it. I do get it. I do understand. When you've created something, and then somebody else takes credit for it, and then that other person makes millions and millions and millions of dollars off the back of your creation, you're naturally going to be a little bit like, yeah. And I'm sure Justin Roiland makes a nice tidy living off the back of Rick and Morty, but it's difficult to be in a situation where you're listed as a co-creator when I think we need to face facts that I don't think Dan Harmon could have created that if he'd have been given 1,000,000 years. Because I personally don't think that is his ability. I think his ability is to find talented people and take credit for their work. But that's my opinion. So unfortunately, I just don't see the point to it as a series. I'd like to give you like a aliens crash on Earth, and have to. It feels like Third Rock from the Sun and Rick and Morty had a baby and produced this TV series. It's that. But that's kind of what I mean. I mean, it's like it's so everything else that it's what is the point? So I do feel it's harsh to judge something on one episode, the first episode. So there's that part of me that's like, I should probably go back and give it another whirl. I don't know when that will be though. So I watched a couple of films. First of which is I finally got around to watching Bad Boys for Life. My review of this film is there's quite a lot of review, and I don't want us to be sitting here for a really long time. I was a huge Bad Boys fan. When Bad Boys came out, I was a big fan of that film. Big fan of that film. Rented it from Blockbuster so many times. Ended up buying an ex-rental copy of Bad Boys on VHS. Came in a massive box from Blockbuster. Absolutely loved it. I could quote that film from start to finish. And as part of film night, I have a feeling that we did a movie cast for Bad Boys. Possibly. And I felt, I have quite a love for that film, so I feel it still stands up. When I was on paternity leave, I bought Bad Boys 1 and 2 on Blu-ray, and I watched them both. Bad Boys 1, to me, still stands up. Bad Boys 2, I realised, having watched it more recently, I say more recently, in the last 2 years, is a terrible film. There is one good scene in that film, and it's the Reggie scene. And that's that. So then they announced they were making a third one. And it's like, ugh. Not directed by Michael Bay. And I saw a making of at one point and realised that it was very heavy on the Will Smith involvement. I'm pretty sure he's a producer, and one of those kind of situations where it became quite obvious, quite evident that he was very much in control of the film. And that shows when you sit down to watch it, because although Martin Lawrence is back in the film, in the franchise and stuff, weirdly, he's not really in like a certain amount of the film. I saw some stuff early on when they were making it, and I had a series of concerns about Martin Lawrence being in it, because he just seems to have developed this like square head. It's really off-putting to me. So I watched it, and I was like, there was this whole sort of section where it was just Will Smith, and it was very much about Will Smith. And the one thing that they absolutely did not learn from the second one was 2/3 of the second one was set in Miami, in America. I think it's, and then they go off to somewhere else. They go to a different country. And there's another like 45 minutes of the film where they're in a different country. Didn't learn from their mistakes there, because in this one they're in Miami for the majority of it, and then they go off to Mexico. The thing was, it was fine. Solid 6 out of 10. I imagine there's a little bit, I give it a little bit more leeway because, like I say, I have a love for the first one. But watching it, and I was getting towards the back end, and I was like, who is this film for? Because you don't get these kinds of action movies anymore. I was watching this, and there was this section where, it was all machine guns and explosions and helicopters falling out of the sky and all of this. And all I could think was, you can tell how unrealistic this is. Because as police officers, the amount of paperwork they'd have to do. Yeah, I know it's that old chestnut, but it really was like they'd never be able to do any work because they'd just spend their time filling out paperwork because of, all the explosions. Another thing that was a real downer for me was it was super heavy on the CG. What I refer to as unnecessary CG, like certain things that had been CG'd, and I was like, why? Why have you done that? This heavy reliance for CG these days, I do feel is a detriment. When you're watching Iron Man and he's in the suit, absolutely go nuts with the CG. When you're watching Transformers and you've got a big transforming truck, go nuts. When you're trying to make out someone's driving down the street so you add a weird reflection to someone's sunglasses, unnecessary. It was fine. I didn't buy it, it's been in my Amazon basket since the day it was released. I today took it out of my Amazon basket because I've now seen it. It didn't cost me anything to watch it because I watched it on Sky, and I watched it on it's not even my Sky, I don't have Sky. So yeah, very much a Glad I've seen it. Not going to be rushing to watch it again. Speaking of, last night, in fact, I watched Zombieland Double Tap, or Zombieland 2 as it's known. Again, today I took that out of my Amazon basket because, again, it's been there since the day it was released. Just why? They make a joke right at the start of the film where they're like, oh, doing another one after so long. Yeah, good question. Just because you address it as a joke doesn't make it okay. That film, I know it didn't get amazing reviews, which is why I've never pushed the button and bought it. Again, watched it for free, watched it on the old Sky Go, and so glad I didn't pay money for it. Because ultimately, the only thing about that film is you spend your entire time going, why? What was the purpose for them making it other than cashing in? What was the purpose of the story? Story was almost non-existent. It was just a cash grab. It was, in places, it was just a carbon copy of the first one. But the difference being is the first one had this true sense of like a mission. They were doing a thing. And there was, twists and turns and whatever, but they were actually doing a thing. In the second one, they were like, oh, we're going to do a thing. Kind of. It's like, oh, we'll get there eventually, but here, let's take this weird detour that seems to have no purpose. Quite a letdown as a bit of a movie. Two highlights. One, the first one started with Metallica playing over the start of the film, and so did the second, which I was like, yay. And two, there's a section at the end which has got Bill Murray in, and that was probably the best bit of the film. So, yeah. Disappointing. I've got written down here on my list, Outriders, will it ever end? Obviously I wrote that X number of days ago because I'm pretty sure I finished Outriders last night. I'm going to go back to it this evening. In fact, I'm going to go back to it in a bit. And I'm going to just make sure that I have finished it. I think by now, we can all agree on this one. I am glad. If I've finished it, I am glad I've finished it. It's probably not a game I'll go back to. Even though there's a multitude. There's like 3 other classes. And I'm just like, I'm good, thanks. People point out to me, I've been playing that game for weeks and weeks and weeks. So value for money, yes. As far as entertainment and enjoyment and other such things, just no, really. It was super lacking. It's a cover shooter with powers, but the powers are not amazing. And once you've unlocked, like by the end of the game, I was still using one of the first powers I'd unlocked. So that gives you kind of an idea of how extensive it is. It was just, I just said to people for when I was talking about it, I was like, it just wasn't the game for me. But from like talking to other people, it feels like it's probably not really the game for most people. Like everybody I've talked to about it, some people are like, oh, I'm not playing that. That's not for me. Other people like, they've got it, they've played a little bit of it. Like, oh, I'm just taking a bit of a break from it. And I'm like, you are never going back to that game. yeah, short version is, as far as Outriders is concerned, I'm going to double check it's finished. If it is, cool. That's that. I will move on to playing Resident Evil games instead. See how I get on with those. So there we go, ladies and gents. Episode 101 in the bag. Yeah, I'm not gonna spend week in, week out telling what episode it is, because I won't remember past a certain point. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining me. And until next time, I'll catch you around. Take care. Bye! So there you go. What do you think to that? Another one done. Another one gone. Here's to another 100 episodes and beyond. Big thank you to all the new YouTube subscribers. You're all awesome. If that's you right now, you're like, yeah, you're right, I am. But maybe I can do more. Maybe I can get other people to subscribe. Maybe you could. If you're just digging the audio, listening on SoundCloud or iTunes or wherever podcasts live these days, then that's cool. But you can also help out by subscribing, and it's a huge help. So that's it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I will see you then. Bye!